Okay, Norman, thank you very much. Norman Smith in Downing Street. And joining me now in the studio is the geopolitical analyst Marco Vicenzino. Marco, thanks for joining us. When President Hollande said earlier today that this was an act of war from IS, does that mean that he is going to change his approach to how to deal with the threat from extremism?
No, I mean, he says this is an act of war. This actually is the opening of a new phase in an existing war whereby ISIS aims to take the war directly to the West, beyond the Middle East. For a long time now, ISIS has been threatening attacks in Europe and attacks in the West. You've even had some individual attacks by lone wolf sympathizers of ISIS in parts of Europe. But overall, this was well planned, it was well executed. It's a pattern of jihadist attacks whereby it's maximum impact and you inflict damage with as many people as possible and to try to gain headlines internationally, and it restores its aura of somewhat invincibility and effectiveness.
And do you think IS has planned and directed this attack because it feels that the West is not going to put boots on the ground, because it feels that the airstrikes are not having as big an impact as the West would have hoped, and therefore IS perhaps feels emboldened?
I think for a long time IS has been planning to broaden its strategy beyond the region. It was inevitable because with Western attacks it would have to make a statement that it needs to be proactive.
So it wants to draw the West in further, does it?
Exactly. I think, in my opinion, it does want to draw the West in further, but there's also part of its strategy. You have to understand, part of its narrative all along has been its effectiveness. Its ability to recruit people has been seen that way, and in recent times it's experienced setbacks. We mentioned the campaign in Sinjar, and there's been reversals. So another way to take the initiative again, to seize the initiative again in international headlines, is once again to take that war to the West, and it also helps in its recruiting efforts.
It's perhaps not entirely surprising to hear, according to government sources here in the UK, that the thinking is that this is a self-contained cell that has returned from Syria. That's always been a fear. But how concerning is it, given the level of security in France since the Charlie Hebdo attacks, the thwarted attack on a train in the summer, that 8 individuals acting together have been able to carry out a series of attacks? When
you look at travel within Europe, it's been 1,500 French citizens are expected to have been trained or to have been present in either Syria or Iraq. Secondly, you have a migration crisis this past year. It's expected by year's end maybe up to 1 million, if not more, will be entering Europe. So they could have entered through that entire network, through Turkey into Greece and back into France. There's a lot of movement throughout. There's been basically being part of Schengen means passport-free travel. They exploit this. And what happens here, I think, is that these groups, these individuals, it's difficult to be on top of them 24/7. They may know who they are, but they may not know exactly where they are. And they may have cut through. You have open societies. They're able to exploit the freedoms that people enjoy in the West, particularly freedom of movement.
The balance between security and freedom. On that point, I don't know if you've seen this news. It's just on one source at the moment, AP, quoting a Greek official that's saying one of the assailants in the attacks in Paris last night crossed into the EU through the Greek island of Leros last month. Now, this apparently based on a Syrian passport found at the scene of one of the attacks. Now, if that is true, that's going to have a very interesting impact on the debate about the whole migrant crisis and the nature of open borders in Europe, isn't it?
Just recently, in the past few days, you had the European summit in Malta, together with President Erdogan of Turkey and with African leaders, exactly to address this issue. And this issue, this migration issue, is presenting an existential crisis to Europe. This scenario of an individual going through the Greek islands has long been expected as a possibility. And if this materializes, it really does not surprise anyone. Because once again, as I mentioned, with millions of people going through, all you need is just a few bad eggs to make their way through. But what I would say here is that Europe is at a crossroads in terms of security. And when you look at a scenario like this, it's going to take collective efforts, and despite those collective efforts, such an attack was, you can call it a 2008 Mumbai-style attack. It was anticipated. They just didn't know how or and when, and this may be the first of many.
In a line, is it going to take boots on the ground to deal with this?
Not exactly. It's going to take reliable partners on the ground with air power and advisors.
OK, Marco Vicenzino from the Global Strategy Project, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, a British student has described the moment that